we are going to be tearing up magazines, and we're going to be using those images for our own personal growth and in our own personal practice. And this is for you. This book is for you. This book is for your own personal growth. So the first thing I want to do is show you how I work with a magazine. For a lot of people, magazines are so close to books that they have trouble tearing them up. I just need you to think about the fact that you collect magazines and then ultimately you go take them down to the library or the Goodwill and you give them away, or somebody who's near and dear to you who loves you accuses you of hoarding, and then you eventually make all the magazines go away. Or you may be one of those people that doesn't buy magazines in the first place. I want you to give yourself permission to choose 3 magazines that are meaningful to you, that are filled with powerful words and beautiful images, and whose sole purpose is soul cartography. You're going to tear these books up, you are going to curate images, and you're not going to worry about how much you spent or whether or not you're going to use them again or read them again. Their sole purpose is to expand your emotional intelligence. I am going to start with this really beautiful magazine. I saw it on the shelf at the bookstore, and I loved the palette and I loved the feel of the cover. I did a short flip through standing there in the aisle and realized that it had a bunch of beautiful images. There was enough beauty in there that I was intrigued, so I went on ahead and bought it. Let me show you the first thing that I do when I start to work with a magazine. I take the magazine and I tear it open. Why am I doing this? It's because I need to just get rid of the stigma of destroying a book. I need to go on ahead and remind myself what I'm doing and not work so carefully that I stall myself. So a lot of us will have barriers around how much we've spent or the fact that this is a book. So go on ahead and just start by reminding yourself that you're curating this entire book for images. So I tear it usually into 3 different sections. Random, I'm not overthinking, I'm just pulling it apart. 2 reasons. Number 1, I'm calming myself down. And number 2, it's actually easier to access the images when you've got these little smaller pieces. All right, this is great. The cover just fell off. Now I'm just gonna go through and I'm gonna start choosing images. I'm looking for 5 to 10 full-page images, and then I'm going to kind of break that down into smaller images and pieces of text. I start general and I go specific, and I really don't think too much. For those of you who are ingesting this course because you know that you need self-management, this is the only time I'm going to tell you this. I need you to move your frontal cortex out of the way. I need you to not think. I need you to access that gut level intuition, inside voice part of you. When I engage in this practice, I literally give myself 2 or 3 hours on my schedule. I schedule it. I schedule soul work. I put it on my calendar. I create the space. I honor the space. I'll either sit in the library at my house, or I'll come over here to the studio, and this is all I'm going to be doing. I take 1 or 2 magazines and I just sit down and I carve a space to listen. All right, I'm going to go through here. I'm going to just start pulling apart this magazine. As I'm moving through, I'm paying attention to the full-page spreads that have attracted my attention. I'm not overthinking, but I'm just setting aside the ones that really capture my attention, and then I'm making another pile off to the side of the ones that are like, oh, okay, interesting, but if something really speaks to me, I'm just creating a separate pile. Yeah, when I use the word speaks to me, I am talking about an attraction. I'm talking about an energetic, like, ooh, yeah, there's something about that. I have no idea what, I'm not thinking about it, I'm not assessing like, oh, it's because of this, or it must be that palette. I'm just going, wow, ooh, something about that. And it's a little bit of magnetic something. I'll understand it later, but right now, moving through this piece of the process, I'm just going through the book, pulling it apart, and paying attention. Okay, I'm just about to the end of this magazine, and I think it's really important to say that this practice actually involves a lot of permission and non-judgment. It's really easy when we start to collect images to look down and go, oh, why am I doing that? I don't know, like, I don't like pink, these images are too dark, what is going on? It's just imperative that you trust yourself, that you trust that what you're choosing has a message for you. That's the point. If you start to overthink this, if you start to wonder what's going on, you're actually judging your own inside voice. And that's part of what we need to suspend. We need to suspend judgment and just lean into what our preferences are and what our choices are. Okay, going general to specific. I've got a couple of piles here. This one, let's see. This stack here, there was either a full page spread or something that was really, really magnetic for me. So I'm gonna set this pile aside. These are the full pages. This is, again, how I handle that 2 or 3 hour session when I'm just sitting down with a book. So now, in my process, I would take this second stack of pages and I would start to then curate for text and smaller images that were really important to me. Clearly, we're not going to sit here for 2 or 3 hours while you guys watch me listen, but it's things like paying attention to text as it emerges, just going through, again, not spending a ton of time, but going through, and as soon as something attracts you, go for it. An encouragement to you is to not skip over advertisements. Copywriters are writing compelling copy. They're advertisers. They're trying to sell you something. They want to get your attention because in order to sell you something, they have to get your attention first. So the text in advertisements is actually really powerful, and it can be a way for you to tap into deeper expressions. So don't skip advertisements because a lot of times there's some really juicy stuff there. For example, with this page here, I like this quote, and then, I've got to look up on the back and go, do I like this quote more than I like this little setting? So I like this quote more than I like what's going on the back, and remember, I'm not overthinking. So I'm gonna take a ruler, and I'm just gonna start making a pile here of text that got my attention. There's a tiny little bit of that palette that was interesting to me. So I think I'm gonna just grab a little square of that, stick it there, and then the rest goes away. One of the things that's pretty important to me as I'm going through this process is that I not generate too much mess. So one of my goals is to have my images and my text collected and then to kind of move the rubbish bit on out of my life. I just have so much of it around here in the studio that if I'm not tending to it pretty well, it actually creates chaos in my life. So that's why I go on ahead and schedule 2 or 3 hours, and I move all the trash on out. And when I end this practice, I've got a handful of pages, some curated text and image, and the trash is out of the way. The reason I'm teaching you how to go on ahead and move some of the rubbish out of the way is that some of this process in and of itself is chaotic, and I don't want little piles of trash to be the reason that you don't do this. So normally I would spend 2 or 3 hours working through that one magazine, and then at the end I would have a collection of curated image and text and these full pages. So I'm going to keep my full pages here. I'm going to just stick them in my container right here in front of me. And for today, I'm going to work with a collection that I've already made. One of the things that I do to make this practice sustainable in my own life is that I will prep anywhere from 2 weeks to a month's worth of pages all in one go. And that's when I access this collection of text and images that I've made. So I've shown you several techniques for laying down color. I've shown you ways that you can write and places that you can write. And now I kind of want to bring that all together into how I prepare pages. Now what you're getting a vision for is that you are going to open up this book in your regular practice, and you are going to have a place to put your experience, a place to put your emotions, a place to access your emotions, or a place to actually engage in some management exercises. This is how this practice works. You create the pages and then you fill them. So now you've got a unique size, a unique palette. You've chosen images and text, again, based on preference, and now we're marrying them, and they may or may not easily go together. Don't stop. Part of what's happening in this process is that you are engaging with your own preferences. I'm going to show you here what has transpired with this page that I was creating in front of you. So I've got this page. I made it for you guys back when we were talking about lists. I created some bullet points to put a list down. I really don't like this weird orangey color. And then moving through kind of quickly, I chose this image with water that I really like, and I also like the word wanderlust. I think I want to cover this up, so I was kind of playing off this orange. Is there some way to marry the orange and green? So I flipped through this book, and there's some orange and green, so I thought, ooh, I'll just kind of tear this one image off and use that. I've learned to kind of flip over on the back to see if there's anything else. Actually really love these images, so I think I want to save them for later. So I kind of went through my new pages that I curated today, and I found this one, and I really like, there's a little bit of green and blue. Palette-wise, it works. So then I started to insert it in the way, and palette-wise, the color of this hand works with some of this orange peeking through. It kind of drew it all together. But then I went to insert it, and I realized, oh, that's right, envelope. So that way I usually do is not going to work. No big deal. What I'm going to do is tape it in. I'm probably going to have to just cut a strip off there, and I'm just going to tape it in, and then when we open it back up, I'll have a place to write, and I don't have to be whatever little offensive thing. I didn't like this brown, I didn't like this page, but you know, it's really going to be a great page to come in and do journaling later. So I've placed this guy. I have deep love of masking tape, you guys. It's one of my favorite supplies. It's super easy to access. It actually is a pretty sturdy adhesive. So I'm not going to fold over to the back side because remember we have that envelope. So I'm just going to line up with the edge of the page, tape it in, and believe it or not, that is going to be enough of a hold for you to use Like, it'll hold this page in. So there we go. Now there's a new page here. Interestingly enough, this is just the way the pages kind of end up working out. I wasn't super concerned with what was on the back, but it ends up kind of working out palette-wise. There's that terracotta and there's that orange. Kind of is brought it all together. And then here's a bonus word that I didn't even know was there. The word revival is here. So knowing how I work later, I'll probably interact with that word revival. I have a bunch of dark magazine page here that will be perfect for, let me just show you. You can take your white gel pen, white gel pen on this magazine text is really amazing. So I'll be able to do some journaling, boop, down here. And who knows, at some point I'll just use this little section, and now I have this other section that I created. And I really love the way this palette just kind of all came together, that little bit of green, the blue. Now, in order for my book to functionally close, I'm just gonna come in here and I'm gonna tear this piece off. And I'm not gonna overthink it. Doesn't have to be perfect. And there we go. So now I've created a container within my container. And I'm really happy with that. And here's the deal, when you enjoy the book, when you enjoy what you're looking at, you'll actually come back in and interface. You'll be excited to sit down and engage in this practice.